Now, many people have very romantic ideas of politicians. Even though they are often frustrated by them, deep down they believe that politicians should be statesmen. They should always think about the next generations and so on. I'm a realist. I don't think you have too many of those politicians. When you have one, like Dr. Jayakumar, he would be rejected by his voters in Sungai Siput. So you don't expect that. That is much easier for us to look at what's the problem. You want politicians to deliver what you want, you have to provide them the right incentive. You have to make sure they get the reform that we want have to be politically profitable for the politicians. Why is it that we do not have enough reforms? Let me split it into three types. One is policy reform, not necessarily touching on ethnic issue yet. For example, giving cash handouts, what Gunnar has alluded to just now, is bad. But how do you move on all this? Reform, change the policy, make it working? First, you need to make sure the government survives. Second, you have to be able to overcome resistance from civil servant, the deep state. You can't do these two. You try to push for policy reform and the government collapse. Remember what happened on 8th of December 2018, the anti-ISID rally. Few Malaysians knew what ISID before this became an issue. Right? That's my actually second part. The second types of reform touching on the fundamental issues of this country. What kind of country we want? Does this country belong to everyone or some people first, others later? These are questions that we do not have an answer for nearly 7 decades. And you expect the government to deliver? No. My experience dealing with politicians is like, you find a solution, you get it work, then they will champion for it. Because they won't take risks. Right? Those who take risks are those who do not have a chance to become government. They would do so because that's the only way they become hero. This is why when opposition, whether it's DAP, PAS, or PKR, once they become government, they all mellow down. Simple reason. So when you come to ethnic issues, you want this country to move forward. For the moment, you can't achieve anything unless you build a consensus out there. A lot of things we think that is very natural. When we read or listen to Mariam Mokhtar, I happen to be privileged to be her friend. Half of the population out there disagree with her. How do you get people to see the common point? That type of reform is on democracy and rule of law. This is the part that, how do you deal with your opposition? This is where the Prime Minister has least resistance. Because if you want to treat opposition fairer, you think the opposition would object, would organize rally to protest this government for introducing Western-style democracy? Of course, no. But why wouldn't this government do it? Because in the playbook, suppressing opposition is the only way to stay in power. So to fix all these things, we need, let me provoke you, counterintuitively, not anything like close to national unity. What we need is new division. Politics are fought on identity. Why? Because that's easiest for people to understand. You don't need to have any education for you to know that you're different from someone else. All politicians would use that unless they have other way to offer. The second types of competitions is based on patronage. If I have money, I can give people money, I get their heart, I don't have to be nasty. As simple as that. I may have to be nasty to win votes, but if I'm already in government, I can afford to be less nasty if I have money to pay. But that also means that your government would end up spending a lot of money, right? And that brings down economy. Third way is to develop policy differences. And that's what democracy is supposed to be, that you get people to compete to offer better solutions to the problem. So whoever wins, the people win. Now that is not happening. The solution that, sir, you are asking is that we have to create political division based on policy differences. And this is why I would say what we need to do. And I would like to start answering your question, sir. Can we get smarter minister? I would tell you, it's going to be very hard. Don't hope for too much, otherwise you'll be disappointed. Why? This is a parliamentary system. It's not a presidential system. The Prime Minister derives his support from the Parliament. He has to appoint his parliamentary colleagues into the cabinet for survival. And having a government consisting of 18 parties, he has to balance not just between the parties, also ethnicity, gender, generation, region. How do you get the best team? No way. And this would forever be his problem. How to make his government look a bit better? You can't avoid having some stupid people among the minister. But you can make them look less stupid if you have a good contrast group. This is why I have been advocating for so long that the government should recognize shadow cabinet from the opposition. Pay them 1/3 of the minister's salary, 5,000 a month. Immediately people would compare and say, well, if the minister in charge of food security is not good, what can we get from the shadow minister in charge of food security? Right? That forced parties, the opposition, to offer better policy. And the moment they start talking about policy, even though you consider that as nonsense, doesn't matter. They have only the same amount of time. The media have the same amount of space to report on politicians. The more they talk about policy, the less they can only talk about religion, concert, attire, and so on. You have to distract them. But you don't just touch on the shadow minister, because otherwise you only involve 28 MPs. You still have nearly 40 over opposition MPs, and then you have government backbenchers. So you need parliamentary reform so that your parliamentarians start talking about real issue instead of shouting. Because when they do their homework, next time when you have a cabinet reshuffle, you have better choices. You have lesser idiots. Simple as this. It's not their fault. Our parliament has never been really functioning until about 10 years ago. You don't expect change overnight, right? Recognizing shadow cabinet, parliamentary reform, having more committee so that government backbenchers and opposition MPs can talk about business. What else we need? We need to have constituency development fund, which Bersih and IDEA has been fighting for so long for all opposition. And don't buy all this government nonsense that, oh, the opposition MPs would abuse it. You think the government MP wouldn't abuse it? You really think that they're in government, they become angels? It's the same thing. Either you have a system to control that, or you don't. Right? But why should you give to the opposition? You starve the opposition, you know what happened? Only hardliner will survive. Because hardliners have ideology to back them up. So the worst kind of opposition you're going to get. So for example, if this government continue, try to break Bersatu by withholding constituency development fund, you break Bersatu, you know what happened? PAS would become the strongest party. In 1 or 2 election time, PAS would become the anchor party of a majority government. Live with that. Fourth thing, we need to give political parties money. Gunnar just now mentions about Public Political Fund Financing Act. That's very important. But I want to add one more point. We need to pay political parties to be clean. You don't pay them, you think where do they get their money from? Yeah. Abuse government resources. MPs, politicians are not going to starve themselves. We have to pay them. And this is something that people need to speak up. You don't speak up, politicians will pretend to be shy. No, we do not want money. We are saints. Of course you know they are not saints, right? We have to tell them we don't trust you, therefore we pay you, and we pay you, you better be clean. Finally, this is something a bit hard for most people to accept. we need to have a vote directly for the party. Besides first past the post, a vote for the MP, we should be able to vote for party. Why? Like Thailand. Thailand has 2 ballots for the parliament. Why? Because when you vote for parties, of course there's a danger. Groups like ISMA would come in and win some seats. But also you can allow non-communal parties like MUDA, like PSM, feminist parties someday, Green Party someday, to win seats. And when they talk about issues other than ethnicity, other than religion, other than language, our politics change. The politics we face and experience today is a product of our political system. We have to change that. If we don't change that, don't expect politicians to be different. Politicians can be men's or women's best friend in that idiomatic sense. You know the word that man best friend? Politician can be our best friend, but you need to give them the proper house training. Thank you.